Thanks for joining us on this Monday, March 28th, the last Monday of March. So we're going into, in housekeeping notes, we're going into April next Monday for cybersecurity all month. So I'm sure that's going to probably like blend in with what we did this month as well. In fact, if you tuned in to last week, the RoboGal showed us the Scorpion version of your solar robot. The RoboGals chapter at Memorial will be with us the next 2 Mondays in a row. So they are showing us some decoding and some various cybersecurity. I'll have those sessions up this week for you to kind of preview what's happening. And the third week is actually Easter break. But we are not breaking during Easter because I figure you're home, so maybe you're looking for something to do. So for that week, we have ICTC with an e-learning course on cybersecurity as well. But today is still March, and today is still robotics. And we actually have Jillian Breau, who is a computer engineer and software developer with us today. And I know that she has a short presentation for us before we go into questions. As always, there will be gamification points for asking Jillian any questions in the chat. And a little later on, I'll give you your gamification code besides. And I believe that's all I'll just throw out the robotics kit. I've been posting that if you do extras from your kit, you do get extra points up to, so your solar robot was worth 15 points, your Scorpion or tank was worth 15 points, and then for 5 more, anything in that book that we sent out at the beginning of March, 5 more activities are worth 5 points each. But with that, let's talk about computer engineering.
Great. Hi, everybody. Thank you. I'm so excited to talk to all of you today. Yeah, like Trina said, I do have a presentation, so I can start to share my screen here. But yeah, so this will just be like a quick introduction. So if I mention anything, that I've done in the past and either that's interesting to you or you don't know what that is, definitely type a question in the chat or ask it later, because yeah, I'll just give an overview. But yeah, my name is Jillian Breau and my pronouns are she, her. And I'll start with when I was in high school, like a lot of you are. I'm actually from New Brunswick, so I went to Moncton High School. And yeah, when I was that age, like I was mainly interested in playing sports. That was a lot of my time that I was really interested in, and reading. But definitely my favorite courses were anything science and math. And in particular, in the later years, my favorite was physics. But I just wanted to touch on, like, I never took any computer science class, and I really didn't know what coding and robotics was then, nor was I in any STEM programs like this one. So I think it's really awesome that all of you are in STEM for Girls and interested in this, but even still, like, I just wanted to point out from my experience that it's really okay, like, if you're not involved in everything right away, because there's so much time to discover your interests and change what you're interested in even. So never too late for any of that. But yeah, so since I was, however, at least interested in physics and math, I decided that I wanted to do engineering. And I was going to go to Memorial University of Newfoundland in St. John's, which is what I did. But I was thinking about mechanical engineering. And in the first year of engineering, you get to take some courses from kind of each type of engineering that's offered, like civil, electrical, stuff like that. And when I took my computer engineering course, which was programming, I just really loved that. I had never seen a line of code before that class, but when I took that class, that made me change my mind of what I wanted to do. So then I started computer engineering, and with that, I got to complete 5 different co-op terms, and I can show you a bit about that. And those were just really impactful. I loved having co-op terms. That's had a big impact on like my future and my life now. And yeah, I got to volunteer with cool engineering groups and meet lots of awesome people who are here. So yeah, my first work term, I worked at Nalcor in St. John's, And again, this was not yet computer science even, or computer engineering, but there was a lot of mechanical and electrical projects, and I got to work in project management. Usually I was in a little office like this, but I got to go to some cool sites like these as well. And then for my next work term, I got to go to Ottawa, which was really exciting. And I worked at BlackBerry, and I would help customers with their software by working on hardware like this one here. And I was writing code in a programming language called C. And so every work term is 4 months long. So, and then 4 months off. So after a little break, I went back to Ottawa and I had a work term at Siena. And there I was making some automated like graphing visualization tools. And that meant that I was working with databases and a programming language called Python and a cool graphing software that's called GraphViz. And then I came back here to St. John's and I worked at Misa, which some of you might have heard of. They're a startup in St. John's that makes smart thermostats. So I was working with that. I worked with the backend code, which would help the thermostat work with things like Alexa and Google, which is really cool because that allowed us to say, hey, Google, turn down the heat, and the thermostat would turn down the heat. But I also worked on the front end of the mobile app, like you can see there. And the front end is, yeah, the things you can see, like you might add a new button or a feature. And I found out that I really like that. This work term was great for me because I found out that I really enjoy front end development and using things like HTML and CSS and JavaScript. So that kind of led into my next work term where I was also doing mainly front end and also back end development at Hike, which is another startup in St. John's. And I was working on the web app there. Once again, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript were some programming languages. And yeah, that was my last work term. So that was all before I graduated. And I put this picture here because that's a fun thing that some of my classmates made when we graduated to make the sign flash at different speeds. And it's with an Arduino, which is kind of have some similar functionality to like a Raspberry Pi that I know is related to STEM for Girls, I think. So that was just a fun thing. But yeah, so after I graduated, I went back to Hike, which is the same place that I did my last work term, which is a great thing about co-op experiences. You can see what you like and or don't like. But yeah, so I came back to Hike, which is where I am now. And once again, I was doing like front end and back end development, but this time of both the web app and the mobile app, which is great and which I enjoy. But I also got the opportunity to have some more responsibility and work with like managing the project and managing some team members, which has been a really great experience. But also it is actually my last week at Hike this week. And so I can't talk about what I've done yet at my next like experience, but I wanted to mention my next plans, which is I'm going to be working with a company called Silvera, and they're actually based in London, England, but I can work remotely still from St. John's. And I'm really excited about this opportunity because this company is fighting climate change, and that's been a goal for me for quite some time, is to work in the climate change space. And I'll still be using like the same skills that I've been using in other places because I'm joining the front end engineering team. And once again, using HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So I'm very excited about that. And yeah, another good thing to know about me is that some organizations similar to STEM for Girls that I love to volunteer with and that you may have heard of, especially Digital Waves, because Digital Waves was partnered with WRDC. But yeah, Digital Waves is a app design learning experience and some more things coming soon. And I'm helping Canada Learning Code get the St. John's chapter back up so that there can be some in-person workshops in St. John's. And I volunteered with WiseNL that has some great high school programs as well. So those are just some things that are like important in my life and also interesting to you guys, hopefully. So yeah, but that's some things about me.
Excellent presentation. Thank you so much. And I'm so glad that you mentioned WISE and L, because I was going to bring this up too. I'm just going to pop it into the chat about the summer student employment program from WISE and L. I know that we've talked about this before, and if I'm not mistaken, you did a WISE a session back in high school. Is that true?
I didn't participate as a high school student with WISE, but I volunteered with WISE. And that actually also wasn't for high school students, but recently, like since graduating university, I got to be a mentor for a university student in like the early years. So she was also a computer engineering student, which was awesome. But yeah, I know lots of people who have gone through the summer program, and it's just incredible. Like they're doing real research in labs or like all these things. Sounds really great.
Yeah, I feel like we've had a lot of role models go through that program. Is I
Mhm.
guess I mixed you up, but why I bring it up especially is because today is the deadline to apply. So you need to be it says student applications are accepted by grade 11 students. So if you're in grade 11 right now, today is the deadline. And I just popped that information into, actually, that's just the Facebook post. I can put the direct link. But so like, put a post-it note right in front of you if you're a grade 11 student, because you can always, if you're not quite sure what you're doing this summer or anything, apply. If you need to do something else this summer, you can turn it down later. Just apply to start though, because it is every role model, every person I've ever talked to that mentioned they did this program recommends it. So grade 11 students, go to that link, flag it, make sure you do it today. So sorry for that kind of like tangent over there.
No, definitely.
We do have the first question, so everyone is welcome to pop their questions into the chat as we go along here. But the first question there is, what was your favorite place where you did a work term?
Mm, that is tricky. I think that probably I would say, just because you said the word place in the question, I thought it was really cool to be able to go to different places for work terms. I guess not places, but place. I loved being in Ottawa, and there was so many opportunities there. Like a lot of different tech companies and things, and even to the point where a lot of my classmates would have work terms there on the same semester. So there would be people that I would know that were also there. So it was a really like, I wasn't alone there, but it was a really great like travel experience kind of. But I think my favorite uh, work term probably was at MISA, because that's where I found out more about like web and mobile development, found out that I liked front end development. And they also do have the element that I'm really interested in of like their mission being focused on climate change, because they make their thermostats to help reduce energy consumption. So that environment is just like really, I don't know, really enticing to be in because everyone's really motivated towards something. So yeah.
Right. And I did want to ask myself, you said that you came from New Brunswick. Did you actually move to Newfoundland for university?
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I
So
came right after grade 12.
of course, like I know that Memorial is known for like its low tuition costs and all that, but did you kind of shop around, or were you like, man, Memorial is where it's at?
Yeah, I wanted to stick to Atlantic, which is, I've realized, kind of an interesting choice because it's harder to get from New Brunswick to Newfoundland than it is from New Brunswick to maybe Ontario. But yeah, I wanted to stay like sort of close like Atlantic, so that would leave me for engineering with like for the full program to go all the way through from start to finish. There's Memorial and Dal and UNB. And yeah, tuition cost is definitely a factor that everyone takes in. So that was like pretty significant. But another thing is that MUN's co-op program for engineering is mandatory. There's some universities that have like the option to do co-op, which I'm sure like you can just fully go ahead and do. But I've just heard it that like where it's mandatory, the co-op office really supports you a lot because it's a graduation requirement. So they'll help you find good work terms and like network with employers and things like that. So, and the co-op experience was a huge part of my university experience. So I'm glad that it was like a quality one. But yeah.
Awesome, good to know. Yeah, I
Mhm.
would have imagined that was kind of similar or more similar across every engineering program, but that's
Mhm.
great.
Yeah.
Next up we have what is the Canada Learning Code program and what was your volunteering like there?
Yeah. So about the program, they have a couple things like just so at like their headquarters in general, they used to have they would drive around to different schools. They had these vans with all the laptops in them and they would visit schools. But that hasn't been going on for the past couple of years. So they've been delivering remote workshops from like the employees who work there. But then, and so that would include like they have programs for kids, girls, teens, ladies, and teachers. So sometimes those overlap, like, you know, kids and girls. But yeah, so they can teach skills like Python and web development, like HTML and CSS and JavaScript, which I feel like I've said like 10 times now. And yeah, lots of cool workshops online. And then chapters are run by volunteers so that you can have in-person workshops in different parts of Canada. So I haven't done a whole lot yet. I'm like getting the St. John's chapter ready because it hasn't done workshops during COVID. But as the regulations are coming back, then we're going to be able to have in-person ones again. So yeah, those will be those types of workshops. Yeah.
Awesome. And yeah, the RoboGals, the second week, I just pulled it up, is actually using the coding language HTML. So that's what we're going to be doing in 2 weeks' time. So that would be April 11th. And that's an interactive session. So and everyone who joins that day will be actually using the coding language.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And because the workshops for Canada Learning Code are kind of like one-off things. Like sometimes there's like say like HTML 101 and HTML 102, but they're not continuous programs, but then the people who run the program can also give you recommendations for like further resources and learning too. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And once you do get that on the go, get in contact because we are always, we partner with everyone and anyone. So, like we did with Digital Waves, like
Yeah.
we're doing with RoboGals and ICTC, there's a lot of great organizations and YSNL for that matter.
Mhm.
The more information we can get into students' hands, the better.
Definitely.
Think I left off with how was your experience in school, meaning memorial?
Yeah, it was definitely very good. Yeah, I think like I don't know, there's a few different aspects of that. Like in terms of I think I've talked about the co-op experiences more. And yeah, those were really significant and you can't like I find you can't replace real world experience in a classroom. So that is something that was like so huge for me because not only do you get that experience, but also you find out what you do like and you might find out what you don't like. But it's, you know, you get to try out different industries and different types of software development or engineering. So you can, yeah, know what you might be interested in doing after graduation. So that was really great. And then yeah, classes are like very interesting as well. Computer engineering is kind of like a mixture. MUN doesn't have software engineering, but if they did, it's kind of like a mixture between software and electrical. So you get a bit of both. And then in the later years, you can choose kind of to focus more on like circuits and robotics, or you can choose to focus more on software development. So that was good. I ended up focusing on the software development side, but yeah, it's kind of a nice like combination program. And yeah, also I think being in like a dedicated program, like it's kind of a smaller, well, it's not small anymore. Actually, lots more people are doing computer engineering. which is great. But yeah, being in like the same class all the way through, kind of, it was like a good community too, and people to work on like projects with. And there's a lab space where you can go and do like your homework and go in between classes all the time. So yeah, it was a good community too.
Yeah, that was always a part that I was a bit envious of. I went through a Bachelor of Arts program, and I did not have the same peers, like from class to class,
Yeah.
let alone year to year.
Hmm.
Um, all like, some people showed up in some classes, but I didn't have the same people. How I kind of navigated that or made up for it was joining society groups, which I like
Hmm.
always tell people to do. I mean, it sounds like you did a few of those as well, of course, but there's ways to make up for that. But I was
Hmm.
totally envious of the science programs that just you were my friends who started in year one had the same people that they graduated with. So
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
a related question here, and this one's coming up from unknown. So if you haven't received your gamification code, just send me a message. So I don't know who this is, but how long did you have to go to school?
Yeah. So it was a 5-year program, but that's because it fits in the co-op terms. So there's actually 8 school terms. So if you think about it, that would be like a 4-year program usually. Um, but yeah, so what it is you do your first 2 school terms, and then from there on out, it goes work term, school term, work term, school term, the whole time through. Um, so you don't have your summers off, but like most people would have a summer job anyway. So this one is, a summer job that's related to your degree, which is good. And they are paid internships. And yeah, so 5 years, and that gives you 6 slots to do co-op, but there, at least last I was there, is 4 required to graduate. So you could have a couple where like maybe you don't receive a job offer, or you take a break, or you do something else. So yeah.
Um, and next question up is, what is the favorite part of your job?
Hmm. Yeah. I think like seeing the end results, that's kind of why I like front end development, because it's not conceptual. It's like actually right there in front of you. You can see every change that you make. So I really like going from kind of like designing, like you might just be having a high level discussion about what the design's going to be, and then you'll draw out what the design's going to be, and then go through all the steps. And then in the end, you have this like final functioning product, and it's just like really satisfying and good to see the final outcome is really exciting.
Um, how about, what was something that surprised you about your job that you wished you might have known sooner?
Mm, that's fun. Um, I think one thing is that like where I was working in a really small, or I am still, like I said, till this week, working in a very small startup company. Um, this is not something I didn't know, but something that I did know about startups is that since it's so small, everyone can kind of like have different responsibilities and be like just doing what needs to be done, because there might not be a bunch of employees to fill every role. So I like that in the sense that you get to have different experiences. But say when I was like hired on, I was more intended to be like a software developer, but then just based on kind of like the availability and the number of people to fill roles, that's how I ended up having more of a leadership role as well. Um, so I guess one aspect of that is knowing that, like, yeah, if you're in a smaller company, you could have to wear more hats. Whereas in a bigger company, you'd probably have like a very set in stone role. And then the other part about that is, yeah, like, not that it's something I wish I'd known, but definitely something I was always learning were those leadership skills. Like I was learning them on the fly, kind of, because I hadn't been in that type of role before. But I have to say that, yeah, there's no way of learning like doing. But yeah, that was like a big adjustment, I guess. And I think, yeah, that can be more common maybe in smaller companies.
Right. That sort of reminds me too. I did mean to bring up, we had a Tech Connect panel last week. We posted the recording in our clubhouse, and just kind of flagging it for any of the students if they didn't check it out. There's no gamification points, I'm sorry. It was a session that WRDC did for people out there in looking for work and thinking about moving their careers into the tech sector. And that just reminded me of it because at one point, one of the panelists was talking about really holding your ground as a woman in tech. And sometimes it, from this is what I took from the session, it seems to be that sometimes women are asked to do the front end to make the website look pretty, when really their expertise and where their passion is in the coding, in the the back end stuff that isn't pretty, isn't handwriting, etc. But so it sounds like you've done that. You kind of shaped your own role in making sure that you got through to a leadership position. And I mean, that's important for everyone, but sometimes women kind of face that barrier of what others' expectations are. And I think there was a good question on this too. Not to answer the question for you, but did you face any challenges being a female in the engineering field?
Yeah, I honestly, I found, especially like say for my classmates who like for the most part were the same age as me, or not necessarily the same age, they're actually yeah, would be plenty of people who like come back to school as well. But the people in my class, I found it was very equal. It made me very optimistic for like the future as my generation is going forwards, because yeah, any like men in my class, I found like, if someone is good at this type of math, then when we're on that unit, you'll ask them for help. And if someone is good at this type of math, then when we're on that unit, we'll ask them for help. And it does not matter, like, anybody of any gender can like ask people for help, or like know that someone is good at something. Like they don't put them down for being female or anything like that. So yeah, I found the actual like way I was treated was really good. Definitely like the numbers were not there. So like there's an obvious like if you
froze up there for me. I don't know if it's just me.
well, definitely. But yeah, so there weren't as many people. But yeah, I found even though my class was mainly of males, they were like very supportive as well. And yeah, even in workplaces with like older generations, or like all generations being around as well, I think that yeah, a lot of companies are making really big strides. Like I felt treated well, but yeah, once again, sometimes you might see other women at the company in general, but oftentimes they're not in tech roles. Like there might be more women in like HR and business roles that rather than in tech roles. And even if there are in tech roles, less in leadership roles. So it's harder to see like that path forward, which I think makes sense because it's becoming more common for women to be in tech, but it wasn't previously. So not a lot of women have had the chance maybe to get to that leadership stage yet, or not as many. So yeah, it can be hard to like not see yourself, but that's why, we keep going so that more people will be able to see themselves. But yeah.
And from the Tech Connect again, I just felt like there was such a female community there in terms of like maybe they're not all at the same company or whatever. And so a lot of these tech companies are small. So it's hard to have equal or huge representation, a huge community at the same community or at the same company rather. But what I noticed at Tech Connect was that everyone knew each other already. Like it was just like a little chat about, oh, what have you been doing since type thing. So tight-knit community over the tech sector among females, I think.
Yeah, that's so true. Like when I was in school, like there were less girls, but therefore we kind of like stuck together and all knew each other pretty well and stuff. And yeah, now being like in the community, yeah, I love to see like role models because yeah, again, I'm in a small company. I don't see them in my company, but that doesn't mean that I don't see them in the community. I went to the Tech Connect event as like an attendee, and yeah, I knew of all of those people. Like I don't know, follow them on LinkedIn. Like they probably don't know me back, but I look up to that so much and love to see people in the community. So yeah, it's makes a really, really big difference.
Awesome. I think I've reached for now the end of the student questions. So just a reminder to pop your questions in at any time. But I'll got a number of questions besides. Let's see. So you came from out of province, of course. Was it difficult to get accepted into engineering at
So I don't exactly know like what the level of requirement cutoff is, say, but no, like everything transferred well for me being out of province. And the main things at the time that were needed were like math, physics, chemistry, and English also, because not like a lot of people think about, you know, engineers not liking English maybe, but it's very important to be a good communicator. So they look at that a lot too. But yeah, so those are the main courses that I needed to have. And there wasn't much like requirements in the process beyond that, like say like needing to write an essay or anything like that wasn't a part of it for MUN. So yeah, I don't know exactly the level, say, of like grades. I think it depends on what applicants they get each year, but yeah.
Yeah, and it probably varies some years, like not to say it changes every single year, but I didn't mean to get into what was necessarily the requirements right now, but it's just whether it was if you knew whether it was competitive, if there's a wait list, anything like that, or when you went through at least.
Yeah, I think the only, well, yeah, I didn't know as many people applying because I was out of province. I think if you were in Newfoundland, you probably know like most people applying to MUN. But yeah, I did like, yeah, there was a preliminary acceptance that was then dependent on like my finishing grade 12 marks type of thing. Um, so yeah, once they got my final transcript, like the acceptance would be confirmed. That was kind of the process there. But yeah.
So once you were at Memorial, what is kind of the class size there? Was it like large lectures or?
Yeah, in first year engineering, where, like I said, it's kind of like a general year of all the types of engineering, there can be some really big ones, like for chemistry and math and stuff. There could be like 200 people. But when you have a lab, it will be in smaller sections, so that you get to work with like lab mates and TAs and the professor. But yeah, the class itself could be really big, but then as the years go on, definitely it just gets smaller and smaller with like a big drop off right away. So you go from your general year to like picking your discipline, and then I think the max that could be in any discipline is usually like 80. I think mechanical engineering is usually the biggest one. And when I was in computer engineering, there were about 35 of us, but I think now the computer engineering class is having closer to like the other numbers, like 70 maybe, because it's really becoming more popular. But yeah, and then even in later years beyond that, you get to start picking like electives and things too. So it can get even smaller, but yeah.
Perfect. Um, Goodness, I just lost my place there. Thinking about. Sorry, I totally lost it. I had a question there highlighted and it has disappeared.
No worries.
Um, for Goodness, I've really just lost my whole sense of direction here. Did you have to do electives throughout engineering? I really don't even know how it works.
Yeah, so there's sort of different types of electives, like there's your non-engineering electives, and then in your later years, you get to pick your more specific engineering electives. So throughout the program, what a lot of people do is they'll do an elective during each work term for like the non-engineering ones, or like because otherwise you'd have to kind of have an additional course during the school semester. Or again, like I said, you don't need to do all 6 work terms. So sometimes people will take a semester and do like all of their electives at once as well. But yeah, there's about 5 things. Like basically, you have to take a couple of like humanities type things, like arts and just non-engineering courses, and one that talks about like the effects of technology on society, and one that's engineering economics, and maybe one other one. And then, yeah, the other side of it is that in your beginning years, your courses are pretty much all picked for you, and everybody goes to the same ones. And in the last few years, you have the opportunity to pick based on what you're more interested in. So, yeah, like that was for me being in computer, it was going between some more like electrical type courses versus software type courses. And I actually could even pick electives from the computer science department too, sometimes if the schedules worked out. Obviously, they weren't designed for my schedule, but if it worked, then if those were more interesting to me, I could do that too. But yeah.
Neat. You mentioned going to Ottawa, I think for Blackberry, maybe.
Mhm.
Were was that kind of wide open of like how did you pick where you did your internships? Could you do it across Canada? Could you
Mhm.
do it in the States? Could you do it in the UK?
Yes.
Yes, just yes.
Yes to that. Yeah. So basically, like the MUN co-op office and computer science office as well. I'm not sure if it's quite as big, say, in computer science. But in the MUN co-op office, they have a job board. So there's a lot of companies in St. John's and beyond that will contact them like every semester. Like Nalcor will have a bunch of jobs. ExxonMobil will have a bunch of jobs, but then also Nokia in Ottawa would have a bunch of jobs that they post every semester. They would be posting them to job boards like across the country, not just at MUN, but a lot of MUN students go there. And yeah, and then as well, all the different like startup companies in St. John's and other companies, yeah, really all across Canada will post in the MUN co-op office specific engineering job board. Um, and then you also have the opportunity to apply outside of the job board if you want. So for the first couple, it's definitely much easier because you might not have like networking skills or like connections to do certain things. But yeah, so I got my first couple jobs through the job board, and that was like at Nalcor and Blackberry. They posted in the job board. And then, but Sienna also posts in the job board. But my roommate, the first time I was in Ottawa, worked at Sienna. I thought it sounded cool. He gave my resume to his boss, and I worked at Sienna the next semester afterwards. So I didn't go through the job board. And then for like MISA, I just applied on their, or, sorry, that's not true. I don't even think they had co-op jobs posted back then. And I just reached out to someone on LinkedIn and said, I would like to do a co-op here. And that was how that worked. And then, yeah, so people will do the same thing with like around the world. Yeah, like Germany, London, Australia, I think. Yeah.
Oh,
Hmm.
that's quite the experience to be able to like pick up and go to another city, another country, um,
Yeah,
while still completing your schoolwork. Uh,
exactly. Yeah.
Very cool. Speaking of which, you're virtually heading to the UK.
Hmm.
What kind of flagged that company for you? Like, in terms of how did you find out about the job? Were you
Hmm.
really just watching that job board, because I know a lot of times, and we say this to students, you can really kind of start creating a dream board of all the companies that you'd love to work for, that kind of thing. But was it that, or did someone headhunt you?
Yeah, no, they did not come to me. I was not that fortunate. But yeah, so I do definitely have, yeah, like a list of kind of companies that I would be super happy and interested to work for. And as of late, they've been becoming all just like climate companies because I knew that was what I was interested in. So I hadn't actually heard of this particular company before. They weren't on any list for me, but they were on an actual list. So I was looking up climate companies, cool climate companies. I probably didn't actually use the word cool, but there is actually a list called the Cool List, is where I found this company, and it just says a list of hot companies doing cool things for the climate or something. And yeah, they were mainly in the US, and a couple in Canada and a couple in Europe. And yeah, I applied to a few different climate companies there and on some other climate lists that I found. And yeah, got to hear back from this company, and it's a really good role as well. And yeah, I'm just like very I used to think before I worked at MISA, which is climate related, that only like mechanical engineers or electrical engineers or something like that could have an impact on the climate because they need to like actually build the things. But people need to like create interfaces and software tools for all of that to work. So I think it's just so exciting. And not only software, like the people who work at the climate company in, like marketing and HR and everything. Like it's so cool how everyone can have an impact on whatever problem they're passionate about. So yeah, but that's how I went about finding them.
Yeah, it's so true. Like no matter what issue you're passionate about, the issue and your career are both separate and the
Mm-hmm.
same. You don't have to be a conservation scientist to work on
Yep.
conservation, or like these are, you can do these very separate things and yet end up in the same place.
Yep. Exactly.
So for remote work though, have you been working remotely? Are you nervous about that at all? Or how does that look for your future?
Yeah, no, I do quite like working remotely. I've been, yeah, obviously in the past couple years, there have been periods where I've been fully remote. And then even when I was able to go into the office, I would do kind of hybrid. I would go in every other day usually. Um, so now, but I've actually been remote since Christmas as well because we had another wave. So yeah, no, I like working remotely. I'm actually in New Brunswick. Right now. I yeah, came to visit my family last week. So that's great. Like I don't need to take vacation to come see my family because they're working during the day too. So I just come here and I see them on the evenings and weekends like people do. So yeah, it's really great. And yeah, now that I'm fully, obviously full time all the time because I'll be working from London, I think some other cool things too is like I might go to like the library or like Atlantic Place or like some places to mix it up some days because you can, or like a cafe or something, because you can kind of change your environment. But yeah, I do like working from home.
Awesome. What are the kind of soft skills that you think are essential for working remotely that
Mm,
the students can kind of work towards?
yeah, definitely. I think communication is big, just like it is in everything. But when you're working remotely, I find you pretty much have to like over communicate rather than under communicate if you were to pick a side, because you don't have those usual elements of just like overhearing conversation or like casual conversations. So you need to, whether it's in writing or in meetings, just like communicate, communicate, communicate. Um, and I think, yeah, like being organized, and time management skills, because it is on you to make sure to get everything done. I learned about a technique recently. Like I do like working from home, but I can have a hard time focusing. There's a lot of things, distractions. And I learned about something actually on LinkedIn from one of the Tech Connect panelists, but like months ago. I had seen Carla Hayward post about this in the context of like ADHD and working, whether remotely or not, that like of body doubling, or like there's softwares that you can use where you just open up a screen where a bunch of people are working silently and you're working silently, and it makes you feel accountable because everyone's getting work done. So there's just cool techniques to, I don't know, focus from home and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that's honestly big, is like your time management and being able to focus. But yeah.
Yeah, I do that one too sometimes. There's a website, I never occurred to me that there was more than one website that did this, but it sounds like Carla was talking about a different one, because the one I know about is FocusMate.
Mhm.
And I can pop that into the chat, but it's simply, it's one-on-one, it's 50-minute intervals, and you get 3 hours per week for free. There's a paid version. There's so often a paid version, but
Mhm.
yeah, 3 hours per week. You can open up FocusMate, and random person somewhere else in the world, you kind of just say, hey, I'm going to work on this project this hour. These are my goals. And you just kind of, then you keep well, some people do it differently. You can choose different methods. You can either keep your video on, keep your audio on, or neither. But you return at the end of the hour to be like, my goals were this, that, and this. And I got, halfway through that
Yeah.
third one or whatever. But it really is like a super helpful thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
We've got a new question. What is the website that you use? Oh, for
Mm,
the body doubling?
yeah. Okay. I actually only tried it a while ago and I can't remember, but you can keep asking me questions if you like, and I'm gonna try to find her LinkedIn post about it because she definitely
Yeah, Carla
made
Hayward
reference to it.
is works at one of the managers, I'm going to say for lack of knowing her actual title off the top of my head, at Tech NL. And they have a lot of resources on their website as well. If you are, especially if you're in kind of grade 12 and getting out into the world there now, looking at potential careers, potential jobs. Their website is simply technl.ca. And they have a lot of programs for even just like figuring out how to describe like your soft skills on a resume, or in an interview. How do you prove in an interview that you are a team player? What proves that? So that's technl.ca.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. She was talking in the panel last week actually about like being able to translate your skills, because like a lot of you might have, and I know I had like a job. I worked at Bath and Body Works in high school, for example, and you have to be able to translate the skills that you have, because you do have skills like communication skills, people skills, organizational skills, and so you just have to be able to translate them to different contexts, basically. And that was kind of something that she was talking about them doing at TechNL that I thought was really interesting. But
Yeah, absolutely. I like maybe I think my first quote unquote job was just babysitting, and you'd never think that that's like a real job, right? Like, why would I put that on a resume? But essentially, it's program coordination, and it's a whole program management, even because you're trying to figure out what to feed these little people and trying to keep them occupied all day. Like, that is some incredible program management skills to be able to babysit for longer periods of time, especially.
yeah, definitely. No, there's lots of ways to transfer the skills. But yeah, I found the post about the body doubling, and actually, she didn't reference a specific site. She just said Google body doubling website, which is what I did. But I also don't know which one I ended up clicking on a while ago. But yeah, that was the advice. So
Yeah, I just quickly Googled it, and there's even bodydoubling.com. So I can't recommend a specific one. We try to recommend only like ones that have free options, of course. So I can't quite do that right off the top, but clearly it's just a matter of Googling it and shopping around a little bit, and or just trying Focus Mate if you just want to try that one-on-one session that I was talking about. We are in the last 7 minutes approximately, so if anyone does have any more questions, now is the time to ask Jillian. Were there any other resources that you specifically wanted to bring up, or some like crucial advice for students that are considering a career either in tech or specifically computer engineering?
Yeah, I did, sorry for the dog. I did, yeah, get some links that I thought I would share about different kind of like programs. Like one of them, or three of them, are the ones that I mentioned in the presentation earlier, but also some other ones, and mainly like to tie that into an advice, I guess. Like that is because I think it's so important to just like try different things and find out what you're interested in. And I don't know, like it's never too late, like I said, to find out what you're interested in or change what you're interested in. But I have found things that I'm so interested in, and I'm like, oh, I wish I had known about this sooner. So just like any, way that you can get involved with different things, whether it's from actually doing a program yourself or like talking to people in different positions, and like asking them about their job or what they do so that you can find out what's out there. Because yeah, I find that's kind of what I didn't have when I was in high school. Like I didn't know what engineering was until grade 12, and I didn't know what coding was until I was coding in university, basically. But yeah, so I think just like getting exposed to as many different things as you can to find out what you like and don't like, and taking the time to figure out what you like is very important. Because yeah, specifically to software development, like even within software development, there's so many different kinds, and I still don't know about them all, but it took me a long time to even realize how much variety there was and how many different things you could try. So yeah, like there's something for everyone, and even if it's not software development, there's so many ways to get involved in like tech companies without being necessarily writing code, or doing robotics, but it also can be those things. So yeah, lots of just opportunities.
Yeah, what I found interesting of Tech Connect is a lot of our panelists said, I wouldn't really consider myself a tech person, and they're working in tech, like in the tech sector. But having little bits of that experience helps you, even if you want to be a manager that maybe doesn't work the tech or develop the software. For you to have a little bit of knowledge goes a long way in managing your team.
Yeah.
And I thank you to the student who reminded me, because I definitely was missing the code for watching today, either live or recorded. Your code is software dev. So there you go. And I did put that in the chat as well there. And you said that you've got some, oh yeah, I see it, recommendations. So
Because I was trying to paste it, but it wasn't pasting. So I put the whole document, if that's okay. Like it's a Word document, but
making sure I can get it, because if I can get it, I can pass it on at the very least. Yeah, I do have it here. So Jillian has a number of links for us, which is wonderful, from Digital Waves, and we will be doing some more coordinating with them in the autumn for sure. Tech NL, high school internships, Canada Learning Code, Greybrook Coding and Robotics. That's a new one for me.
Yeah, they're in St. John's, and they do have, I know not everyone's in St. John's, they have some virtual courses, but they also on the weekends have like some coding classes and camps and things. I think they're pretty new, but I've seen them, so I wanted to share them. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll definitely look into that and recommend everyone does. YSNL we touched on. Don't forget that the deadline for grade 11 students is today. So check out ysnl.ca for that. And She Connects, that's another new one for me, remote across Canada.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm a mentor with She Connects, and the last two ones that I put are not necessarily tech related, but that's something that I also think is important because you can just learn about different perspectives and stuff. But yeah, She Connects is a mentorship program for girls and gender diverse youth in high school age right now. But yeah, you get paired up with like a woman or gender diverse person in their 20s who can talk about some like post-secondary experiences or guide you through high school and just life things. So yeah, that's a really great program.
I love the sound of it. And Step Up Virtual.
Yeah, I've also been doing some volunteering with them, and they are Canada wide too. And it's a month-long summer program, and it's also free and virtual, and it's geared towards people from low-income families, but can be open to everyone depending on how many applicants. And yeah, it's a like leadership and professional and personal development program with like lots of keynote speakers and skills sessions and learning about entrepreneurship a bit. And yeah.
Nice. I look forward to looking into these, and I'll certainly, for the students listening, if you can't download it or anything for any reason, don't worry. I will put it into the Clubhouse chat in this session. So if you're in the Clubhouse, I should be this way. Yes, that way to the chat, and I'll put them there for you to look at after the fact. And this recording will be up hopefully tomorrow. But with that, we have made up an hour. So I'd like to thank you so much, Jillian, especially for all those resources. I mean, especially for everything, but it's just like you said, it's so important to find those various organizations to help you along the way. There's never a time that you ought to feel alone in your career journey. There's so many great organizations and great mentors out there to help.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
oh, you're so very welcome. And I hope everyone has a lovely Monday evening. It looks beautiful where I am. I hope it's beautiful where you are. And we'll see you next week with RoboGals for, let me just bring it up, a presentation about encryption, how computers encrypt, decrypt, and an activity on decoding a pig pen cipher. I don't know what that is, but I'll find out next week. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.